Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss regarding transfer of property under Sales of Goods Act 1930. First of all, let us see what is performance of the contract. Performance of the contract means when both the parties perform their respective obligations and nothing is being left. So it is called performance of the contract when the seller has supplied the goods and buyer has made the payment. So in case of sale, the performance is done immediately. But in case of contract of sale, the performance is done at a future date. So in this diagram, you can see when the buyer pays for the goods and the seller transfers the ownership and possession to the buyer, the performance of a contract takes place. Now, what is transfer of possession? There is a difference between possession and ownership. Possession means when you give the custody of goods to a buyer, then we say that possession of the goods has been transferred. So we can say that transferring the possession of goods simply means handing over the goods to the buyer, but the ownership rights may be still with the transferor. So we can take the example, A gives his car to B as B wants the car to drop his relatives to the airport. Here only the possession has been given by A to B, while the ownership still lies with A. Another example can be when you give a car to repair to a mechanic. Here the possession of the car has been given to the mechanic, not the ownership rights. Now let us discuss what is transfer of property. So transfer of property means when the ownership rights are being transferred by the seller to the buyer. So here when ownership or property rights are given to the other person, the seller or the transferor no more stays the owner of the goods. The legal rights to own the goods are also handed over to the transferee. So we can take the example as A sold his car to B for rupees 1,50,000 and transferred the ownership documents in the name of B. Although the car is lying in the custody of A, but the property rights or the ownership rights of the car now belong to B. So possession may be with the seller or with the buyer, but the ownership has been transferred from A to B. Now let us see the difference between transfer of ownership and transfer of possession. In case of ownership, the ownership rights are transferred from one person to the another person legally. But in case of possession, only the custody of the goods is being passed on. Ownership rights belong to the owner. In case of ownership, it is only the owner who has the ownership rights of the goods. A person may or may not have the possession, but ownership rights will always belong to the owner. Liability for risk of loss. In case of transfer of ownership, once the ownership is being transferred from one person to the another, the risk for loss of goods is also transferred. But if you have given the possession to some other person, you cannot transfer the risk of loss. Right to sue. Only the owner has a right to sue against anyone if anyone damages his property. The possessor of goods cannot sue a third person who does any loss to the goods. So these are the major differences between the ownership and the possession. Thank you.